And hello and welcome. My name is Martin, and today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using the Foliage Tool. We have a rather large area right here that looks rather bad, doesn't have any kind of anything there. The last time we dealt with foliage, we did it over here, and actually let me get rid of those because we don't need them. We did that over here, and we did a small area. Now we need to fill in a whole forest. So there's actually a special tool that what it does is it gives you the same thing like a brush, and it will randomize plants and different foliage that you put into it. So let's go ahead and take a look, okay? So let's go, we're up here in modes. We're gonna go to places, we're gonna go to landscape, and then we're gonna go to foliage. So foliage will be that one. Now there's a couple of different modes that are running here down the side. The one we're interested in is going to be in the paint. We can also do the select and then also the lasso tool maybe. Let's see how long it takes us to get through this. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to add a type of foliage. So let's go and look for trees. Let's actually look for grass first. And what we're looking for here, these are going to be, we're looking for meshes, so static meshes. So we want to make sure that we have static meshes grass. And there's one right there. So we're going to click and drag and drop it into the foliage area. And let me drop that down so that you can kind of see what's going on there. Okay, that it got added to. Let's look for a completely different type of grass. So let's say maybe this one, and let's say that one. So now we have 3 grass. Let's look for bushes. So let's type in bush. We do have a few, so let's grab bush 1, 2, and 3. And I'm not sure if it added any of those. Okay, so it got one of them. Which one did it get? It got bush small 1. Let's do bush 2. And let's try this bush 3. Okay. So now we've got 3 bushes and the 3 grass. Let's try, I don't know, let's see, do we have a shrub? Nah, that's too much. Let's try a tree. Okay. So we should scroll down far enough and we'll start finding trees. And keep going down. Okay, so there's a tree, so we'll do 1. We'll do an orange tree. You know what? I think I had a problem with that one before. We'll get rid of that one, but I'm going to add another tree. So let's grab, let's say, this tree. So let's do one more tree. Okay. So let's look at the different type of foliage that we have. We have 1, 2, let's get rid of this one. So we got 1, 2, 3 grasses, 1, 2, 3 trees, and 1, 2, 3 bushes. Okay. So right now, all of them are selected. You can see that each one of them has a check mark. What I want to do is I'm just going to go to one of the, I'm actually going to make sure that the other ones are not active since I want to show you these one at a time, right? So you can paint with all of them together or you can paint with just one of them at a time. Now, when you do select them, you are going to, up here at the top, you have pretty standard brush options. And then if you click on each one of these, you'll get a mesh option down here at the bottom. We'll take a look at both of those. So the first thing is going to be the paint up here. So the brush size is easy. We know what that is, how big the brush is or the tool that the area that you're going to be doing. Paint density is going to be how thick it makes these, or how closely together they are and how many of them are. So the density, how thick they are. All right. How many of them are going to occupy that same space. And then also the erase density is when you go to erase these is how many of them does it take away. So you can have it take away none, which is kind of silly because then the erase tool wouldn't work. Or you could say half of them go away, or 3/4 of them go away, or 25% of them go away. So erase density, or the paint density and the erase density. I'll leave the erase density, let's say, at 50 for now. Okay, so now that I have that, what I want to do is I want to check. So once I've got one of the grasses, I'm going to come down here to the bottom and pull this up, and then we'll look at the information for the grass itself. So the first one is going to be another density, so you do have another one of them right here, and this is saying 100 per 1,000 per 1,000 units square. So that's going to be crazy. That's just going to look like really, really thick, ugly grass. So let's knock this down to, let's say, about 10. Now the radius is going to be how far away from one, if I see an instance of this, so if I put a grass, let's say somewhere in the middle, how many points away from that grass is the next one going to show up? So let's say 100, so then that way it's actually going to be 100 units before we see the next grass, so then that way it'll make sure that the grass doesn't go in too heavily. Uniform is the scale X, Y, and Z going to all be the same? Or are they all going to always show up roughly at about the same area? And then the scale X is going to be, X is usually going to be, with trees it's going to be height. With grass, because it's going along the ground, it's going to be X value. So let's say at the minimum 100 at 1, and let's say at the maximum 3 for now. And what this is going to do is going to change the thickness or the amount of them per how they show up. So it's going to give it like a, so not all the grasses are going to look exactly the same. If everything here was exactly the same, it would look very uniform. Here we're going to be breaking up that uniform a little bit. Okay. This one, the Z is going to change the height, so we don't really want to change that. This one is important, the yaw. What that's going to do is it's going to rotate on the x-axis everything, so then that way again as you're painting it's going to rotate and size, rotate and size, rotate and size. And so you'll have some, even though we're using the same mesh over and over and over and over again, it should look different enough to where we don't really feel it, so the eye doesn't detect it as it being exactly the same mesh. The other thing we might consider is adding no collisions to this, so then that way our character will be able to walk through it, or in the case of trees, we'll be able to walk through the trees. Okay, so let's go ahead and with those settings the way they are now, let's go and add some grass. So I'm going to click and drag out, and it's taking my game just a second to add and compile all of these, and let's see what that ends up looking like. Now, right off the bat, I feel like that's pretty thick. Let's actually walk through that. Let's push play and walk through. So that is actually over there. I don't know. Feels okay. Okay, kind of interesting. So now let's erase them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold Shift. Okay, it's per click. So every time I erase, I'm erasing 2, like if there's 10 of them there, I'm erasing 2 out of the 10. So you can see now there might need to at least be that many. Let's move that all the way back up to 100. Not happening at 1. Let's move the density down to 0, and now we're erasing all of them. Okay, so let's try that again. Let's I wasn't really super happy about that grass. Let's try this one instead. So we'll knock that one out. Again, those density settings are for each one of the individual meshes. So I'll have to go back and do this for each one of them. So let's add 1 per, you know what? Let's do 5 per every 1,000. We'll do a radius of 100. We'll leave them uniform. We'll scale them anywhere. Let's do a scaling of 1 to 5. And we'll leave that with no collisions. Okay, let's go ahead and draw these out. I find that to be much better. I like the look of that. Okay. Now, the other thing also is it also shows me how many I've created. So in that little area, my computer now has to keep track of 431 items. That is quite a lot of stuff. So again, in the sake of making sure that you don't, kill your computer by overrunning the amount of information that it can handle. So let's say that felt like a lot of them. Let's scroll back up here and let's make this one per every, let's say 200. Okay, a little bit less. This now has 360 of them. And let's actually walk through. Now, another thing that you might also notice that's happening, see how this mesh is sort of disappearing as I walk away from it and appearing as I walk towards it. So that means this mesh must have some type of a blueprint or something that visually says, fade in or fade out, depending on how far away the main character is from this grass. Okay. Typical for grass, as there needs to be lots of blades of it, and that means that the computer is going to be holding a lot of information trying to create the graphics for that. So it's nice if they were to go away if they're not being actually used. Okay, so let's hit escape. Again, that's probably okay, but for right now what I'm going to do is let's go ahead and delete. So I'm going to hold shift and delete. Let's take a look at the next grass. So let's make this one active, that one go away. Let's change its density 10 per every one. Let's do radius of 15 or 500. Okay, let's make the grass height vary wildly from 1 to 10. And let's go ahead and draw that in and see what, that 10. This might be a little bit too big. Let's take a look. All right, that looks like a thicket. That actually may not be too bad. Let's push play and see what that looks like. Very cool. Kind of has like a, the grass is very big. It looks oversized, really. It looks like we've shrunk down to a smaller size. Still though, kind of fun, kind of interesting. You might be able to work around, create some kind of a fun environment for that. Let's make that more reasonable. Let's go back in. Let's delete it. Again, holding shift. Okay. And instead of it 1 through 10, let's make it 1 through 5. Let's draw a little bit. Still oversized. I'm going to do an undo. Oh, because it didn't take. Let's say 5. Enter. Now let's push play. See what that looks like. Okay, more reasonable. Can kind of see over the top of it. Can kind of see things coming. Okay, very cool. All right, so again, we're going to erase this. Okay, and let's leave this, I don't know, 1 to 2. Okay. So now let's look at some of the shrubs. Let's do the same thing. And essentially what I'm doing is I'm running each one of them individually to see what they look like. So then that way I can run them together as a whole and do one wide area without having to do too much. So again, I'm going to click on it. I'm going to come down here to the mesh. I'm going to see what kind of, that's really thick. So let's do 100 tab radius of, let's say 50 for the shrubs. Shrubs, you have a tendency of growing together. Let's make it 1 to 3 so we have some variation on the heights. And random pitch angle. Add some, oh, you know what? Angle. Probably don't want angle. We don't want it teeter-tottering back and forth. All right, so the important thing is that we have density, radius, right. So let's see what that looks like. Oh, we still got the grass tool plugged in. Let's take the grass tool out. Let's undo. Ah, interesting. When we undid, when we did that, we didn't have the grass selected, so it didn't erase the grass. Okay, so let's take the grass out. Let's put the shrubs back in. Okay, that looks fairly reasonable. Okay, which means that our grass really is going to have to stay smaller than that. Okay, let's see what kind of heights we left on this. That's 1 to 3. Not bad. Okay, let's turn, let's get rid of these. All right, let's go to the next shrub. And at this point, we have a fairly good idea. It's probably going to be in the low 1 to 20 for density for bushes. Let's make it about 100. Let's make it 1 to 3 again to see we don't have any supersized plants that are going to come out of this. Oops, same bushes. Whoops. Okay. Right. So what happened there was we did the information for the right bushes, but we didn't draw in the right bushes. Okay. So we've got some nice bushes there. Let's look at the last bushes. We'll take that one off, go to this one, click on that one. Let's scroll until we see density. So again, let's make these a little bit denser, like maybe these grow closer together. 10. Let's make them to where they're not really tall plants. So let's say 2 for maximum height. Okay, let's draw those in. Okay. Pretty nice. All right. Let's click on both of our bushes and let's delete both of those. Okay. So that must be the other kind of bush, and it is. And let's look at our trees. Now trees usually grow some distance apart from each other. Usually 2 trees growing close together. One tree will win out and the other tree will die. So let's put that in. Now I didn't go in and make any changes, so we've got this really thick grove of trees, right? Which is going to take my computer a while because trees have a lot more moving parts with the leaves and things like that. So you don't want to use too many trees because it will cut into, again, your computer's performance. So let's move that back down. Let's select that. 100 density is way too much. Let's say 1 per every 300. And let's vary the sizes from 1 to, let's say, 2. And let's push, let's go ahead and see what that looks like now. Okay. So that looks more reasonable. Okay. Our trees, even though it's the same tree, they're rotating. You can see that there's some rotation on each one of those trees. They're not all exactly lined up exactly the same. There's height differences between them. 2 of them are smaller, 1 of them is bigger. And there's some nice distance that was created between them. Okay, so you can see how easy it is to start drawing in your foliage there for your trees. Okay, so let's go ahead and get rid of those. Let's say that's fairly good enough. And in fact, let's say 1 in every 500. And let's make this a height difference of 1 is probably, let's do 1.5 to 2. Okay, let's go to the next tree. Select it. Again, let's say 1 in every 600. Let's vary the size from 1.4 to 2. Okay, let's move down to the last tree down here. And with it selected, again, let's say 2. Let's say these trees like to grow together. Let's say 2 in every 400 for the radius. And let's size it from 1.1 to 1.8. Let's say there's not a lot of variance in height in these trees. All right, so now we have all the grasses, all the shrubs, and all the trees. So let's go ahead and click them all in, and let's see what kind of a forest we get with this. Okay, I'm gonna make my brush a little bit bigger. All right, I guess I can do that one up here. And okay, let's push play. Okay, I would say ridiculously thick with vegetation. We might want to go in and sparse that down just a little bit. That's a pretty heavy foresty action there. I can't even tell what direction I'm going. There's no clear path. Let's see if we can get out of here. There we go. Okay, so let's kind of start trimming that back just a little bit. This time with all of them still selected, let's go to erase density and let's make it 75%, and then let's see if we can't take the brush size down a little bit, and now we'll hold shift and see if we can't create a path through the forest. Okay, so I've kind of see if I can find my little path here. There it is. There's less vegetation right here. And I believe my path went. There we go. So that wasn't too bad. Let's see if we can make that just a little bit clearer. Now, for the path, let's see if we can't just make just the tree. Maybe there's too many of these orangey trees. Let's go back in. I like the grass. I like everything else. I just feel like there's one too many trees here. So again, let's oh, I don't have anything selected. There we go. Let's make the brush size a little bit bigger. Okay, and now I'm going to hold the shift key and walk it back. Okay, maybe we need to change the density a bit more. Okay, so now we have our path. So let's push play. Very clear that I have less foliage here. Okay, so again, this is meant to be an easy way to create a very big forest very quickly without having, if you could imagine what it would have taken to randomly place and rotate and resize each one of these trees and grass and all of that, would have taken a very long time. But with the foliage tool, we can pick whatever vegetation we want, tell how often we want that vegetation to show up, tell it how often we want that, how much space we want between one of these and another, and then just start drawing it out. And it makes it very easy to create a very realistic looking outdoor landscape with not a lot of effort. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed the video and have a wonderful day. Bye bye.